Hi, I'm Dr. Dianna, the Deal Breaker, and I'm so excited to do life with you. This is the season that you must be empowered. I want you to join me every Thursday night at 9 p.m. where we can not only grow together, but we can build together. This is your season to go into greater heights, and I want to do it with you. So join me by subscribing to my YouTube channel, as well as like me on Facebook, and let's do it together. Again, I'm Dr. Dianna, the Deal Breaker, and I look forward to doing life with you.
Yeah. Yeah. Hello, guys. Thank you for being so patient. A couple of technical difficulties, but we're back. Thank you guys for being a part. Welcome. I am Dr. Dianna, the Deal Breaker. So excited to be with you. For those that are watching, take a time now and just share for me, please. Go ahead and share. Share to your group pages, to all your friend pages. Let's even start a watch party. I want to challenge about 12 of you to start the watch party now. We're going to have a great topic on tonight. Again, I want to thank everyone. And if you have not been involved or have not registered, you must do so quickly, because we're excited to know that, believe it or not, starting on next week, next Monday, we will begin our session, Rejection 101. I want to encourage all of you to be a part of that, starting Monday all the way to Wednesday from 6:30 p.m. to 8:30 p.m. You still have time to register. So I want you to join me online. We're going to have a fantastic time. We're going to learn a lot about rejection. This is a big topic now, guys. It's all over the world. It's in every world system that people are experiencing rejection more now than ever before. And I'm learning that now this is going to be a time, and a lot of things are going to be exposed from all different walks of life, from all different sectors. But we got to be able to deal with the issues and different things that have hit us, to how we properly handle it. So I want to encourage you, take the time now. Let's go ahead and start the watch party. Everybody get that started. And because we're going to have a great topic on today, and we're going to begin to talk about a lot of things that a lot of times people don't want to talk about. I don't want you to just watch this, but I want you to take notes. I want you to, again, get people on here that you know really have been in the situation of being hurt, been rejected, let down, disappointed. This is going to be the broadcast and actually the session for them, because we're going to go into some hardcore situations and conversation about exactly what do you do when you're bleeding. Those that are watching, if you're one of those that have bled to the point you're hemorrhaging, I want you to put at the bottom of the box that I am one that have bled. Put it in the box that I have bled. And like I said before, no matter what position you have, no matter what you're doing as far as the capacity of leadership, if you are going to go into a place in life of growing, you're going to experience some hurt, some disappointments. And I notice a lot of times when you begin to be open about different things and you begin to express that, sometimes people look at you crazy. They think that you're complaining too much, or they think that you're doing too much. or they feel like you're not justified in sharing and giving your testimony about what you've been through in life just to help somebody else. But I want to encourage you today that it's okay to share your experiences. I think the biggest thing that we got to really address tonight, we're going to talk about it, is that you have to be careful. Be careful with the energy you release in that sharing, but you also have to be careful that, and make sure that you are in a place of being in a position or ready to heal. Because a lot of people can express what they're feeling, and it comes from a deep, hard, dark place, which means a lot of times it can really reflect not only your character, but it can impact your brand. It can impact where you're trying to go. So honesty is truly, as they say, the great policy. But make sure that when you put forth your policy, that policy is going to be a policy that's going to really bless you and take you to a whole different level. We don't ever want to create a situation that can harm us more than help us as we're beginning to express what we're feeling. So I want to make sure that everyone now, if you would, if you look in the box as they're provided for you, please remember to register for Rejection 101. And everybody, if you would share, share, share. Now, a couple other things. After tonight, as soon as we finish with this broadcast, we're going to go over to Zoom and we're going to have a private session. And I want you to be a part of that private session. Also in the chat box, you should see it right there where it shows you the link. We're going to go into the Zoom box, into the Zoom chat room platform, and we're going to begin to talk about more in details this topic on tonight. And I always tell everyone that join, you have to be 18 years and older, because sometimes our content become very explicit, and we want to make sure we can talk freely without any backlash or feeling like we have to code what we say because of the presence of minors. So you must be 18 and older to be a part of that session. That session will start immediately after this Zoom and after this broadcast tonight. So go ahead, register. It's free. It is free. Go ahead and register. As soon as we get off here, join me over in the platform privately, and let's have a real conversation. We normally go over there about 20. Matter of fact, the last 2 or 3 weeks, it has been so intense that we normally stay over to about 45 minutes. But on tonight, we're going to make sure that we conclude and be done no more than about 20 minutes or so. So this is just part one. The aftermath party, or what I call the after party, is in the Zoom platform. And this is for men and women. And it's amazing because not only do we get women input, but we get men input. And so if you're tapping in on tonight, make sure you're sharing this broadcast. Where are the likes? Make sure you're liking. I want to take a quick second and ask everybody to like this broadcast right now. For my YouTubers, thank you so much. I have family over in the YouTube section, in the YouTube place. I want to thank you for my YouTube subscribers. If you have not subscribed, go to my YouTube channel under Dr. Dianna the Deal Breaker and subscribe. If you're not a Facebook follower of mine, go ahead now and make sure that you become a follower, like the page, and make sure you get your notifications. Right there at the box, it normally say either share or notifications. Go ahead and click notifications saying that you want to be notified every time I come on live. And listen, we typically are here every Thursday night at 9 p.m. Eastern time, but we also do periodically some special, what I call some special broadcasts. So I want to make sure that you're able to tap in anytime Dr. Dianna the Deal Breaker comes on. All right. So we kind of did some housekeeping things before we get started. For my first timers, thank you, my first timers, for being on. Put your name in the box there. Those in YouTube, put your name in the comment box. For my YouTubers, please make sure that you're putting comments in the comment box. Don't just watch, put comments there in the chat box under YouTube. And those on Facebook, make sure you put in the box that you're a first timer, or just put for what city you're tapping in from. So again, thank all of you. Now, let's get ready for the nitty gritty. Now that we've taken care of you guys registering for Monday, starting Monday session of Rejection 101, 3 days of power. And then also make sure that you've registered for the, what I call the VIP session right after this. We call it the adult session in the Zoom. That's free. Make sure you register for that. And then 30, make sure you're liking the page, subscribe to the YouTube page, and make sure for all my first timers that you are putting your name or putting your city from where you're from. And again, thank you, my first timers. Click the notification button so you can be notified. Now, let's get started. One of the first things I want to do, I want to go to our topic. And our topic is a topic that we really need to talk about. Last week was powerful. We talked about basically don't lean where you cannot glean. And we're also this week going to be definitely talking about learn to believe despite the bleeding. Let me say that again. Learn to believe in spite and despite the bleeding. And the reason we want to give this topic because this is the prelude to rejection 101 on Monday. So we're going to do a little introduction, but the next time we get together, those that are registered, and thank you for those who have already registered, you're going to join me for 3 intensive nights of 2 hours each to talk about more rejection and what it involves. And we're going to get to the nitty gritty about the gates of rejection. There are gates to rejection. We're going to talk about the foundation of rejection. We're going to talk about the characteristics of the perpetrator and what I call the victim. We're going to also talk about exactly what is rejection, what does that entails. We're also going to talk about the steps to overcoming rejection. So we're going to have a very good conversation for the next 3 days when we start the event on Monday. Now, the first thing I want to do, I want to thank you for those and thank you for those that are jumping on now. Thank you. I am Dr. Dianna, the deal breaker. Thank you. We're going to go now and talk about our topic for the next literally 25 minutes because I really want to jump over to Zoom and have, what I call have the family meeting, the adult conversation. All right. Again, I'm going to put a disclaimer. We're not a churchy platform. This is not a churchy platform. Now, don't get me wrong. I am a faith-based leader. I believe that there is a higher power, and that higher power for me is God, who is the head of my life. But at the same time, we got to be careful because some people get so religious that they lose relationship. Let me say that again. Sometimes they get so religious that they lose relationship. And I'm going to tell you, those that are watching, if you're with me, a lot of people are tired of the shenanigans, the games, what we call the role playing in church and things like that. And I've had some people say, it's like you church bash or people bash. No, 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 no. I have nothing against the institution of what God has put forth. The problem I have is when people put on facade and people begin now to become what I call cover up. When you have situations of leaders, laymen, whatever it is, whatever position they may hold, and it's not only with the church, it's with business, it's with education, and not only it's with the entertainment. There's a mask that many people have worn for years, and what ends up happening, you have what I call the perpetrator that wear the mask very well, but then you have the victims that cover themselves up as well. So here you go, you have two sets of people. You have one that is killing, and you have one that is bleeding. Let me say it again. You have a group of people that is killing the spirit of people, and then you have a set of group that is they're totally bleeding. And then it's like vice versa. You have those that have been killing now that they're bleeding, and those that are bleeding are now starting to kill. So we got to talk about this issue that a lot of times nobody don't want to talk. How many of you watching have been that person where your family or close friends that say, what's in our house, stay in our house? How many of you ever heard of that? What's in our house, it stays in our house. Or how many of you have ever heard, now this is just between me and you, don't let nobody else know, we'll handle it this way. And so what do? You begin to keep it in, you begin to suppress it, and that suppress become an oppress, and that oppress become a depress. And so what ends up happening, you're now dealing with all this pressure that's oppressed, but nobody is, watch this, bringing you out of what you're in with this press. So now you build pressure and you're now about to blow up. And the reality is that when you get to the place about to blow up, a lot of times now people want to label you as crazy. When the reality is not your response that they need to be looking at, but it's the causes of your response that we need to take a focus on. So the first thing I want to do for all of those that are tapping in, thank you guys. Make sure you share and don't just look, please like. Because I notice a lot of times we have a lot of views that come in, maybe it's from 800 to 1,000, but there's only 20 likes, which tells me that sometimes people come in, they stay in for a moment, but they don't take the time to like. But I also have said this, and some of you may understand when I say this. I don't want anyone liking that don't believe it. Don't like it if you don't believe it. So it's okay. But let's break this down. Are you ready, guys? Just put in the box, I'm ready. Those on YouTube, put in your comment box, I'm ready. We're going to go now. We're going to go hardcore for the next 15 more minutes. Put in the box, I'm ready. Let me see how many you're putting in the box, I'm ready. Thank you. Thank you. Put in the box, I'm ready. Make sure you put in the box, I'm ready. Make sure I'm gonna wait till everybody put in the box. I'm ready. Wait till you put in the box. I'm ready. Thank you. Put in the box. I'm ready. I want it. Wait now, everybody put in the box. I'm ready. Put it in the box. I'm ready. Because I want to be real with you. And I've had a lot of flack. I'm just going to be honest. I've had a lot of people give me flack about what I'm doing with Deal Breaker. Thank you, Dr. Thomas, for being on. I've had a lot of people give me flack about what I'm doing. People like, you're going too far. It's like you always hating. I'm not hating. It's just now time for people to be truthful. It's now time for people to let out what they've been holding in. And then this is the thing. Don't ever be made to feel bad because you're letting out. Sometimes you will let out what people don't want to, release. They don't want people to know what's going on within you because of something they have caused upon you. But this is the time you have to be set free. You have to be set free. You have to release, because let me tell you why. The first nugget I want to give you tonight, your bleeding is now turning into a hemorrhaging. Can I say that again? Your bleeding is now turning into a hemorrhaging. In other words, it was okay when it was just a cut in a wound, but now you have completely bust a blood vessel because the pressure has caused that vessel to burst. And what is end up happening now is that a lot of people are afraid to open up and are afraid to be honest because of what people are going to think of them and what people may say about them. But I want you to know, here on this platform on Thursday nights at 9 p.m., we're going to expose, we're going to be truthful, we're going to be honest, we're going to celebrate, because life, true life, is about ups and downs. And every time you come on Facebook or every time you hear something, it's not going to always be the goody two candy, what I call the candy wrapper situation. Some things will be hardcore. And what has happened, we have now developed a weak system of people. Listen to me, especially those in the church, especially those that are in certain sectors, that they cannot handle the truth. And the way they move away from the truth is that they try to make you feel crazy. Let me see how many people are getting that. Let me say that again. The way they hide from the truth a lot of times is to try to make you feel crazy. I have news for you today. You're not crazy. It may be a situation where you're just hemorrhaging. And the reason you're hemorrhaging because you have never had the opportunity to necessarily be healed from your bleeding. You've only been given the opportunity to put a Band-Aid on it, but no one really has allowed you the opportunity to express what you feel, to release what you feel, so you truly could be healed. All right. So one of the first things I want you to write, those that come on the broadcast with Deal Breaker, we're about information, not sensation. Again, we're always about information and not just sensation. Okay. The first thing I want to do, I want to talk to you, and I want you to write down this first thought. First, understand this: the importance of believing, even though you're bleeding. And I can hear some of you saying, "Well, how do you expect me to believe while I'm bleeding?" I want you to hear me, and I want you to hear me very carefully, that the bleeding is not your issue. It's when you lose the believing while you're bleeding. That's the issue. When you begin to move away from understanding that the bleeding you're experiencing is deeper than the feeling. Let me say it again. The bleeding that you may be experiencing is deeper than the feeling. So what happens, the feelings are so uncomfortable that the feeling now takes more power, or have overpowering your bleeding. So now what happens, the bleeding is the focus, and you move away from the bleeding. You move away from the believing. Now, I want you to hear me very carefully. The first thing I want to tell you is that the believing is necessary. You have to believe while you're bleeding. Why? Because believing births opportunities. Write that down. Write that down. Believing births opportunities. Okay? I want you to take time and hear what I'm saying. Believing birth opportunities. The only way opportunities will come in your life, you have to first beckon it. You have to seek it. You have to cry out for it. And the way you cry out for it, you have to believe it first before you can see it. The problem is with people that are very sensational, they have to see it first before they believe it. But people, watch this, that are moving in the place in their life or knowing what they carry and know who they are, don't have to see it first to believe it. They believe it first and then they see it. So that's the difference between a person that has sensation versus a person that believes in information. Now, if you have to see it before you truly believe it, that means you're possibly bleeding. That means you're possibly bleeding. The next point I want to make, I want you to write down the next takeaway from this, is believing is also a gate of possibilities. There's a difference between opportunities versus possibilities. The opportunity is when it's brought forth to you, but possibility is the place of creating something that you yourself may not even ever seen or ever heard before. So you not only just want opportunities, but you want possibilities to be one of those things that come into your life. Why? Because possibilities really, honestly, have greater expansion than just opportunities. Okay? The third nugget I want you to take from this is that it's easy to say you have results. Yeah, results come from any kind of effort. But in order to have gains and increase, it has to come from a target action. So what happens, some of us are putting forth effort, but we don't have an intentional target action that we're literally implementing to get the gain and increase that we're needing in our life. So I don't want you to just do stuff to do it, because there's a lot of people that do stuff just to do it to get any kind of result. But when you're talking about gains in your life and increase, you have to be focused and you have to have a target of action. How does this connect into believing? Because in spite of all my bleeding, I'm focused enough to be targeted to what the very thing I'm going for, and I'm going to believe in that versus focusing on the bleeding. But when you begin to get so caught up in the bleeding that it turns to a hemorrhaging and it turns to you busting a blood vessel, now there's damage. And when you have a damaged person that is bleeding, that damaged person that is bleeding is about to kill. That bleeding person that's damaged, totally damaged, is now about to strike. So there's nothing wrong with exposing. There's nothing wrong with sharing. There's nothing wrong with releasing. But when you're damaged and you're hemorrhaging, you become a danger to yourself. I hope you guys are sharing this because I want you to understand the times we're in. I'm not going to be surprised that this is going to be a time you're in that you're going to have a lot of situations that's going to be a shock factor. Why? Because it's kind of like for those who have ever had a pimple. That thing is going to come to a head that you don't have to touch it. It's going to bust on its own. It's going to literally burst on its own. So now, because a lot of us have not dealt with our bleeding, we're now moving into a place of hemorrhaging. The thing I can tell you about bleeding and hemorrhaging, and the major thing about it, we know that bleeding, again, can come from a cut. It can come from the outside of something. But when you're hemorrhaging, that means you're bleeding on the inside. That means there are things in you on the inside that was never healed that it got to come now out of you. What you don't want is a person in your life that is so in a place of hemorrhaging that their blood will splatter on you. When their blood splatter on you, now you're not only infected with the blood, but now you're going to be affected by the blood. So now you have to be very careful now that in the midst of all that you're in, that you keep that place of believing, because the believing is one of the things that help you with the healing. Okay, I'm gonna say it again. The believing is one of the things that helps you with your healing. I'm not talking churchy. I'm talking about there are people who are hurt on their jobs. There are people hurt in the family. There are people that are hurt in their projects and education. There are people that are hurt by friends. There are people that are hurt by organizations. It's just not a church thing. Because guess what? Everybody that attends church comes from these different other sectors. The thing with church is that everybody, a lot of times that's in the church, are operating in the other systems. But everybody in these other systems may never ever go to church. So you're going to have damaged people coming in that are hemorrhaging, but shouting and pretending. I said, you got a lot of hemorrhaging people that have come in your life, in your church, in your family, around you, in your social group, whatever, and they're hemorrhaging, but at the same time, they're shouting. And you don't know they're hemorrhaging because they keep shouting until they bleed so much they bleed out. And when they bleed out, then at that point, there's no sense of believing in their eyesight. But in the midst of the bleeding, you still have an opportunity to believe. Can somebody put in the box, in the midst of the bleeding, I still have an opportunity to believe? And guess what? People don't control your believing. You do. You may never can control how people hurt you, disappoint you, let you down, but you control your believing. Isn't that awesome? That no matter how you may bleed, you control your believing. Sometimes your believing is what gets you through the bleeding. Somebody put that in the Bible. Sometimes my just believing is what gets me through the bleeding. And the reason I'm so passionate with this, because I've never hid from people the damage, the hurt, the disappointment as a leader, as a child, as a mother, as a friend, as a sister, as a co-worker, as a student, whatever it may be, whatever function that I've ever held, I've always experienced that. But the great thing about my experiences is that my believing never stopped. And because I never stopped believing, my bleeding did not take over. And because my bleeding did not take over, I could never hemorrhage. But this is the thing. We have a lot of people that cannot handle that because they don't know how to address it. You know what rejection is? Come on. If you're watching me, you've been rejected. Sorry, you may say you haven't, but you have. I don't care how rich you are. I don't care how poor you are. I don't care how popular you are. I don't care what your credentials are. I don't care what your title is. I don't care what your position is. You have been rejected one way or the other. You've bled one way or the other. The question that I pose to you today is, are you turning your bleeding to hemorrhaging? Are you so caught up in the bleeding that you don't have no way of believing? Have you ever been so damaged and hurt that sometimes what you're needing and believing in comes around you, but you couldn't see it because your eyes were full of blood? You could not see it because you was caught up in your bleeding. So you have to understand that believing births opportunities. Believing is a gate to possibilities. And just because you get a result, every result is not a good result. The question you have to ask yourself, am I getting gains this time? Am I getting increase? And if I am, does that mean I have a target action? What kind of actions are you implementing? What are you doing with your life? Because I'm going to go with you. You can always tell the level of a person's belief by how they behave. Somebody put that in the box. You can always tell the level of a person's belief by how they behave. You cannot tell me you believe in something, but your behavior is is literally contradicting the way you say and you believe. A believer is not just believing in the church. A believer is believing in themselves, believing in their goals, believing in their dreams, believing in their ideas, believing in their future. We usually take a believer and think only on the spectrum of religion. But a believer, you cannot, can I go there? The first birthing of believing of anything else is you first have to believe in yourself. If you cannot believe in yourself, you definitely won't believe in nothing else. I don't care how much God you have. Oh, I'm about to make some people really mad. I don't care how much God you have in your life and say you believe in God. If you have an issue with continuing to believe, you're going to always have an issue with believing in God because you first don't believe in yourself. You got to learn how to do the acting of believing. Believing is not only an attribute, but believing is a statue. It is also a status. It's also, watch this, a condition of the mind. If your mind is not conditioned, it's going to be hard for you to believe in anything. If your mind is not conditioned, watch this, it's going to be very hard for you to grow into things and to move into things, because no matter how you say you do this and say you're going to do that, because your belief level and your belief system is so dysfunctional. You are easily to say one thing, but you turn around and do something totally different. Why? Because your belief status, your belief place is not in accuracy. It's not in the place of strength and power and in the course of being strong. So we got to look at our belief. How do we believe? How do you believe? Do you really believe? Do you if you lost everything, will you still believe? If everything was taken away from you, could you still believe? If people did certain things to you and they didn't turn out and do the things they said they would do for you, could you still believe? Because let me tell you, if bleeding literally affects your believing, then that lets you know you've already been in a place of hemorrhaging. You've been in a place of hemorrhaging. Somebody asked, well, how hemorrhaging is caused by a traumatic injury. Traumatic injury, not just a hit, but a traumatic injury. It's caused by force. It's caused by pressure. And so we have a lot of people around us, and it may be you, that is hemorrhaging. And you're trying to figure out, who do I tell? What do I do? You want people to believe in you, but the question is, do you first believe in yourself? You mean all that you've been through and conquered, that whatever comes in your life, you stop believing? Somebody put in the box, I cannot stop believing. I cannot stop believing. It's real. Guys, how many of you say you have faith, and yet it's like you can't believe you? I wish I would be honest. You say that, you know what? I believe I can do it, but there's something in you keep telling you can't do it. That is because you're bleeding. Possibility you may be hemorrhaging. So what do we do now? What do we do now? What do we do now? You have to understand, you have to change that. You have to share. How do I do that, Dr. Dianna? I hear everything you're saying, but you're not giving me answers. This is the thing I want to say to you, and I want you to hear me very carefully. The first thing I want you to do as we get ready to shut down this broadcast, because I'm ready to go into Zoom and talk to my family, talk to my adult crew. Guys, join me in Zoom. It's free. Just register. It's right there in the box. The first thing you have to do, listen to me carefully. You got to stop measuring who you are and what you do by others. Just because they do you wrong or they've done something to you don't mean you're destroyed, because you still have your believing. You have your believing. So you cannot measure your life and situation by what others have done. You can't compare yourself with others. That's going to damage your belief system, because it's not their believing, it's your believing. And let me go with you. The atmosphere will only operate based on the level of your believing. Have you ever said something to yourself into the atmosphere and then it turned around and it happened? Have you ever been in a place where everything was going so well, but yet you're still looking for something to go wrong? Come on, y'all, be real. Everything's going right. You're like, okay, what's going to happen? Something's going to happen. You're already defeating yourself by your believing. Believing is a gate. It's a gate to opportunities. It's a gate to so much wealth. It's a gate to new doors, to new places, to new adventures, to new destinations, to new journeys. It's a gate to so many things in your life. The problem is we have a low level of believing. Some of you associated with faith. That's a whole different place. That's a whole different, you got to first believe before you can get into faith. Some of you talking about you have faith, but you don't even believe. Oh, it's real. So number one, again, is you cannot compare yourself and look what others are doing. The second thing you have to understand, and this is a prelude to Rejection 101. You guys, you got to register and be with us the next 3 nights, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday of next week. Register is in the box. You got to be a part. I'm telling you, it's going to change your whole mindset. It's going to provoke your thinking. It's not only to provoke your thinking. I'm not trying to, what I call fool you to get in the session. I'm telling you, it's going to change your life. You're going to see things that you have overlooked all these years. All these years you overlooked it because you didn't understand the operation and the systems of who you are and what you've been made for. Now watch this. Write this down. This is the second point I want to make, how you deal with this. Bleeding is not a bad thing. Really? No, it's not. Bleeding is not a bad thing. Because, watch this. Notice when you cut skin or break a skin, you break that skin, it causes an opening. Yeah, it don't feel good. Well, I got news for you. Most times when you walk into a brand new opening, it's not going to feel good. It's going to be a cut in the process of it. Did you hear what I just said? How many of you go back and play in your life? Right before you went into something grand, big, and new, you went through hell before you went through that. You got to get cut so hard before you experience that. And some people say, oh, I don't believe that. Is that necessary? A lot of times it is, because, watch this, when there's a cut and that skin heals, you get new skin. As a matter of fact, the skin becomes tougher from the previous skin. So in order for you to go to the next place you're going, that skin will be cut just to get tougher for the new place you're about to walk in. The bleeding is necessary. Now, watch this. The bleeding also gives you awareness of areas in your life that you do yourself thought you were okay in that you really wasn't. So, the bleeding now is an indicator to tell you the light is on, pay attention, and get ready for where you're about to go, and get ready to get this part shaped, get this part fixed, get this part healed so you can really move on. Bleeding is an indication of breakage. And when you're broke, that means there's an opening. Brokenness is always an indication, watch this, that you're about to move into a place of elevation. Brokenness is always necessary in order to get the multiplication. Write that in. Brokenness will always be necessary before you get the multiplication. Some of you don't like this talk. Some of you are not getting this. Some of you may not even say, what's the necessary? Why is this so necessary? It's necessary because you're losing your place of believing. You're so caught up in the bleeding, don't know that the bleeding is your opening, is the breakage to a whole new place. And that the experience, yes, is so uncomfortable, but yes, it is necessary. Why? Because you now have attention to it. You're paying attention to it closely. You're feeling it when you've been trying to avoid it. I said it. You're now feeling it when you've been keeping it, put it in the place of keeping avoiding it. You can't avoid it no more. Why? Because you're made to feel it. When you're made to feel it, now you got to react to it. When you're made to feel it, now you got to do something about it. Before, it was okay. I can get over it. I'm not going to address it. I'm going to act like it's not even there. But when you feel it, you can't pretend no more. And the last point, you got to remember this. When you're in that place of being broken, when you're in that place of bleeding, because you're open, you're exposed. You are exposed, not for negativity. You're exposed for new skin, for new growth, for more tenacity. So while you in that middle place of bleeding, that middle place of being open and exposed and broken, this is the critical thing. You can either, watch this, just get results from it, or you can get gains. It's only determined by how you behave in the midst of the bleeding, in the midst of the broken. It's how you respond. It's how you react. Most importantly, is how you believe. You must learn to believe despite your bleeding. Because while you're in the midst of that bleeding, you have to believe in order for the healing and the opportunities to come in place. Have you ever noticed that a lot of the things you've experienced, just watch this, things you can talk about in the past don't affect you as much as it did then? Some of you are still bleeding some, some of you bring it up and you start feeling a little something, but you're nowhere where you were. Can anybody put that? I'm nowhere where I was. Back then, I was about to knock somebody's head off. But right now, I'm good. I can talk about it, kind of laugh about it. Yeah, I'm not quite happy about it, but I can control my feelings. I can control my sensation. But back then, I was about to lose my mind. You know why? Because you got tough skin. You bled to get tough skin. And now when you have the conversation about it, or now when you're with someone else and somebody else is around you, you can share your testimony or share your story or your life experiences. You're helping somebody else that's in the bleeding that you were in. You are in such a unique situation, but it's about how you believe. It's what you think in the midst of your bleeding. Change the way you think while you're bleeding. I never said it was going to feel good. I never said that it's something that's comfortable. But the whole time you're bleeding is your blood. The whole time you're bleeding is your cut. The whole time you're bleeding, guess what? Is your wound. So only you can change that wound by how you believe. Some people that have caused you to bleed did you a favor, because that's the only way you would have disconnected. Some of the people that caused bleeding in your life, they didn't even know they had you bleeding. All they thought they were doing was what they always done. But they didn't understand that that was helping you with your process. Some people you're holding grudges against. Why hold grudge when they did you a favor? You're bleeding, but yet now you're in a place of leading. Why? Because the place you've been bleeding in, now you can leave that place with those that are bleeding in that place. In other words, one time you were the person that bled, but now you can be the person that caused now to be in a place of leading. You're in such a unique situation. Maximize in it. Change the way you think while you bleed. I'm telling you, there could have been days I could have cussed some folks out. Can we just be real? I don't care how deep in God you are. I don't care how in love in God you are, how holy you are. There are going to be times in your life when you bleed, you going to feel it to the point you're about to bleed out. And the reason why a lot of us have bled out because we never knew how to deal with why we were bleeding from the cut in the wound. We allow the cut in the wound now to become infected. We allow the cut in the wound to now become infected. And now that it's infected, we're now starting to affect everybody else. You have a lot of leaders that are infected. Some of the leaders you have to forgive, they were infected. Some of them are still infected. Some of them won't even recognize how infected they are because if they be honest about it, then maybe the people will look at them different and then people will stop believing in who they are. See, everybody have believing issues. Some people do stuff and don't want to be open about it because they don't want you to stop believing in them. When the reality is, it don't matter what nobody believes in you as long as you believe in yourself. That is what we're dealing with. That's what we're dealing with. So the last thing I want to say to you is just remember this. When you're bleeding, there's always going to be a loss. When you bleed, there's going to be a loss. But the loss is not what's around you. The loss is about the things in you that can't go with you to the next place. The bleeding is something that happens on the external. It's just a cut, it's a breakage. You know, have you ever had a scratch but you didn't bleed? Have you ever had a scratch and you never bleed? But when you have a scratch that cuts and break, that's when the bleeding comes about. But a hemorrhaging is a rupture of a blood vessel that never was dealt with when it just bled. Now it's a force of bleeding from the inside that's now coming out. So people that get attitudes with you, people that are going through stuff, and people that express anger and they seem mean and frustrated, they're hemorrhaging. They're crying out, help me. I'm hemorrhaging. I'm no longer just bleeding. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that it helped you, showed you some things, guide you. So I have to encourage you once again. Please hear me very carefully. Please hear me very, very carefully. I want to make sure that you understand you have to learn to believe despite the bleeding. This is very personal for me, this particular broadcast, because I know what people go through. I've seen it. I've seen people so damaged, they never come back from it. I've seen people so destroyed by getting caught up in their bleeding that they lose who they are. Some people are bleeding so hard they become what I call codependent on substance, drugs, alcohol. Come on, y'all, be real. They're bleeding so hard that they begin to go out into the world and experience and be in very dangerous territories. They try things that are life-threatening. They live loosely and they live carelessly because they're bleeding. They don't know how to express how they feel, so they act out instead. You see with kids all the time. Kids that are disciplinary issues, it's deeper than that. They're bleeding. There's something in them bleeding. Guys, we got to see the people that are bleeding around us, and we got to help them before they start hemorrhaging. And we got to encourage them to let them know as I close, hey, it's okay. You're bleeding, but you don't have to stop believing. You're bleeding, but don't allow that to turn to a hemorrhaging. Those that are watching now, let's go over to Zoom. Let's have a conversation on Zoom. I want to thank everyone that's watching. Make sure you share this, and I need many of you to start the watch party. And I'm telling you, get ready. There's going to be a lot of exposure in this upcoming season. Trust me. Because what I see people hemorrhaging everywhere. In every world system, they're hemorrhaging, and they're about to release hard. I'm telling you, watch me. Watch what I say. You're going to see time after time again, people exposing, people releasing, people letting stuff go. You know why? You know why everything's coming to a head? Because people have been bleeding so long that now they're hemorrhaging, that in order for them to survive, they got to now tell it all. They're going to have to release the lie. because they're bleeding so much that now they're hemorrhaging. That if they don't just release all the lie, they're afraid they're going to die. Don't ever get to that point in your life. Don't ever get to a point where you stop believing. Guys, for those that are just coming on, make sure you share this right now. Make sure you like it. I am Dr. Dianna, the deal breaker, and I hope that I've said something to encourage you. I hope that I've said something to give you thought. My whole goal is to provoke your thinking. My whole goal is to challenge your mind and to also give you information, but I'm not about trying to give you sensation. I'm not trying to make you feel good. I'm not trying to boost your ego. What I want to do is really open up to you and say, it's time now to think outside the box. That's why I am the deal breaker. Why? It's about breaking the patterns over your life, the way you think, the way you see, the way you act, and the way you behave. Until next time, guys, come on, make sure you join me. Join me now. Join me. Everybody get on Zoom. Thank you for those that are logging on. I got people in Zoom ready, waiting now, ready to start the session. We're going straight into the session. So go ahead and sign up right now. It's free. Get on the Zoom now. And let's go and let's do this. And for those that are doing the playback, make sure that you get here in enough time that you can join us on Zoom. Because listen, it's open to everybody. I want to thank everybody that was a part. I want to thank everybody that's starting to watch party for me and be encouraged and know that it's not over. All right, keep believing. Again, here's the flyer. Make sure you register. It's in the box for Rejection 101. It starts this upcoming Monday. I want to see you in the session with me. Monday, October the 5th through the 7th. It's 3 nights from 6:30 to 8:30. Please make sure you register. I want you to be a part of it. I want you to be involved because guess what? Not only do I believe in you, but I'm telling you, we got to get healed in all areas of our life. We got to get healed in order for us to get to the place of going higher and higher in our destination as well as our goals. Until next time, guys, you take care. And YouTubers, thank you so much. Make sure you put it in the comment box. Guys, I love you. Make sure you like this page. Like. Good night, everyone.